In 2004, my oldest brother and I both purchased motorcycles together. He bought a 1978 CB750F3 and I bought a 1991 CB750 Nighthawk. His grand vision was to modify the bike and bobber it out. He was purchasing parts from older motorcycles to one day tear down the bike and build it up into his grand vision. Tragically, I lost my brother in August 2017 in a car accident, and the bike became mine. It came home with me in 2018. My intentions are to rebuild the bike from the ground up, making it a reliable rider. But much like him, I believe he wants me to put my own flair to it. I'm not much of a bobber man, and I certainly don't want to chop it up into a cafe racer. My brother, without a doubt, loved this bike, and he rode it everywhere he could. But a 41-year-old bike does come with its fair share of problems. The chrome is rusting and pitting. The frame is showing signs of rust and corrosion. The electrical system will not charge when the headlight is powered on. The carburetor shows signs of leaking fuel, and the valve cover gasket was leaking oil onto the headers. Disassembly took place in the winter of 2018, but I had to devise some sort of labeling system so I could work on this project for a couple years and not lose any parts. Partzilla.com has illustrated parts in which I copied and organized them into files on my computer. Let's look at part number 15-4. The number 15 corresponds with the numbered file in my computer. The number 4 is the part in the illustration, and I have a bill of materials that shows the name and part number of the part. If I was working on a smaller job with a manual, the part would be labeled with the page that the diagram is on. Electrical wires get single letter designations with a letter being on each side of the connector, and tubes would get 2-letter designation. This is something I learned working on tractors and cars. The bike was in storage for the past 5 years, and the carburetors would definitely tell that tale. We were heading into the deepest part of winter when the motorcycle disassembly was done. So I grabbed the carburetors and I headed indoors. I separated all 4 carbs and dipped them in a carburetor dip that I bought at a local automotive shop. I ordered a 4-into-1 kit, complete with all the brass fittings, and replaced them as well. The results came out really nice. The rear master cylinder is a corroded mess on the inside and the outside. The 3 calipers were frozen to the rotors and had to be removed so I can push the bike around. After I disassembled all these components, including the front reservoir, I took them to a shop to have them cleaned and repowder coated. I had to use the expensive kit because the caliper pistons and bleeder valves needed to be replaced. The fork tubes were showing wear from its 40-year journey, so they were next on my list. Surprisingly, they worked perfectly, but the oil was probably 40 years old. I disassembled them, had the bottoms powder coated, put them back together using Bel-Ray's 10-weight oil, a PCV tubing as a seal driver, and an all-ball seal kit. They're now waiting to go back on the bike. Do you remember how corroded the frame was at the beginning of this video? Well, initially I took the frame about half the parts, including the swing arm, to get powder coated just to make sure that they were good to reuse. The rest of the parts went with the fork tubes and the brake calipers. So my next project is going to be the wheels and rims. And what you see here is the original Comstar rims that were offered for the 1978 F model motorcycles. It turns out the bike I inherited does not have these. They have the aluminum cast rims that were made by Lester Industries of Ohio. I am told the front rim can be found on other makes and models of motorcycles, but the rear 18-inch rim was only made for the 1978 F model motorcycle, making them rare.